Hi, this is Immanuel. Welcome to the Dev Diary 5 of Imperator Rome. It's about pops. It's about what individual pops can do. It's what the individual pops will bring your empire. It is how they are defined in the world. Basically also how you can mod them here. So let's have a look. The 5th Dev Diary. The population mechanics, as Johan calls them. The population in the game is divided into population units. Just like, for example, in Wiki, Rome 1 or Stellaris, each individual pop has its own religion, culture and happiness. So that's what they consist of. Religion, culture and happiness. And there are minorities there. There are ways to increase happiness of pops, including ideas, inventions and access to trade goods. And they tend to be less happy if they are not of the same culture group or if they belong to a different religion. So it's part of the game, like in EU4, that you could convert them to the religion or to the same culture and they would be a little bit happier or give you a little bit more of what they produce. Happiness impacts two things on the pop. First of all, pop happiness directly affects how productive they are. That is a usual mechanic. That's like in Stellaris, for example. And that's a logical thing. How happy you are directly corresponds to your productivity, usually, but if you're too happy, if you're on the chemical bliss, then you are not productive anymore. Secondly, low happiness increases unrest in a city. So there's the unrest mechanic that is also known from things like Wiki, Rome 1 and newly Stellaris. Yeah, that's a continuous system that Paradox uses, and I like how they try to fine-tune the system to every epoch, to every era of history, be it the future or one of the ancient periods. Like here, there are 4 different types of pops in the game. First, we have the citizens. They provide research and commerce income. So they represent the patricians in Rome and nobility in monarchy. So they are not a very large group, probably. They are the elite that is not on the top, that the elite that is not the rulers of the country. Then we have the freemen. They provide manpower. The plebs of Rome is included in this group. So the freemen would be people that are not owned and that are naturally born to your empire. Like they are of the so-called founder species, if you go to Stellaris terms. I mean, it could be that they are in an empire where it's not clear, like representing like 4 different culture groups or tribal groups. Then what happens? We don't know. Well, freemen are like, if you are in Greece, then the freemen would be probably of culture Greece, but not citizens, not rich enough. And we have tribesmen. These provide a tiny amount of manpower and tax income. These are the barbarians or uncivilized parts of your area. So tribesmen would be tribes that somehow belong to your area, but probably not to a very well-developed city. Maybe this is in a new colony. Maybe this is a tribe could move to you and so create pops in your cities that belong to tribesmen, so they have to be converted. A tiny amount of manpower and tax income. So they are not slaves. They are not slaves, because slaves only provide tax income. And slaves, there have been very different slaves in that historical times. It's very interesting to read about that, because there have been quite influential slaves also, especially in the Roman Empire, when slaves were had by very influential people. They were used as for example, master administrators, and so got quite a bit of influence. And that also sometimes had slaves going against slave uprisings because they were just in a good position. They were treated nearly like citizens, or sometimes even better than citizens. But of course, the vast majority of slaves were often in very terrible conditions. On the other hand, the slaves providing tax income were also seen as a possession, and a possession reflects on their owner. So if the owner wanted to look good, he would treat his slaves relatively well. He would feed them well and so on. So it's a strange effect slavery had. Slavery is a very, very bad thing, but it's a strange effect slavery had, that in these ancient times, slaves were often treated better than in I'd say, precarious areas of the world in globalization times, the workers are treated. The so-called free workers are treated worse than slaves in the Roman Empire, for example, very often. So how do you get more pops in a city? First of all, there's always a single pop either in growth or decline, depending on the population growth of the city. When this pop is fully grown or totally dead, either a current pop is picked for death or a new random pop is created that will slowly grow. So you are in a state of something, and that state is either growth or decline. And so there's no real stagnation. There could be the system that there is a roll and then the pop either dies and then is away, and then a new roll is done, or the game asks continually, is there enough, for example, food so the pop can grow, or there's not enough food so the pop will decline. We'll see how it works. Probably it will be a continuous system. Terrain, civilization value, amount of pops in the city, and access to trade goods impact the growth in the city. We have here the city of Leontini. We can see this city can have 2 city buildings, but has none at the moment. So we have these buildings, and we have some kind of a civilization score here. And you can see that in August 469, a Syracusan citizen following the Hellenic faith will have grown. So similar to games like Stellaris, you know in advance which kind of pop you will get. And here you can see that you gain like 0.5%, nearly 0.5% per month. It's currently at 4.64%. So it's growing quite slowly for every month. Yeah, you have, so the yearly is 12 times that. So it's about, 5% per year. So you'll have in 20 years in that city, you'll have a new pop. 20 years, how long will that be in the game? Is that a large amount of time? It's an average amount of time, I'd say. It's definitely an amount of time, where you would change, for example, your emperor, or the leader of your civilization, of your empire. So it's definitely a growth that is continuous rather than revolutionary. There will hopefully be also revolutionary growth movements through migration. Damn that driver outside. So, secondly, you can also gain pops through warfare. And that's where probably slaves come in. As you sack cities, you will take some of their pops back to your main capital and your provincial capital as slaves. And can you free them? One other aspect of conquest is that when a city formally becomes yours, citizens become freemen, and freemen become slaves. So the citizens of the new city are disowned, basically. The freemen become slaves. The lowest, everyone goes down the one level lower. And that can be a problem, because your new cities then won't have any research and nearly no commerce income. Your new cities will have manpower, maybe some tax income from the tribesmen, some manpower from the tribesmen, and tax income, but no commerce income and no research. Commerce income is something different than tax income. So you won't have a real trade route that would bring you anything, but you would have to bring trade goods there because they impact the growth of the city. As you can see here, grain and fish impacted positively. And you have, this is a forested area, so the growth goes down. And the city's population also counts in. Probably the higher the population, the less quickly the city will grow. I don't know if that is logical, but I think it could be in that time, because it gets all kinds of hindrances when the city becomes bigger, there's disease risk and stuff like that. And the civilization value also increases. And then you have a base value, as you can see here. So if you take over cities, these cities will not grow much and will have no commerce income and no research. So every time you concentrate on conquest, your research will suffer. And a little bit of also your income. Just like in EU4, you aren't very good at trade, except in your home trade centers when you go on a conquest spree. spree. If you need more citizens or freemen of your pops, you can always promote pops to a higher class of society, where promoting a slave or tribesman to freeman currently has a base price of 10 religious power, and promoting a freeman to citizen costs 10 oratory power. So through power you can level them up, so to say, lift them up. If you permanently want to increase a pop's happiness, you can always spend some religious power again to convert them to the state religion. That has also other positive things, probably lower unrest. And there is another dev diary coming about colonization and internal movement later on, where there'll be more talk about pops and probably the growth mechanics very early on, especially probably of the tribesmen, because you send them to the uncivilized parts of your areas, which could be a new colony. And here we'll have the dive into modding. Anyone can define how many pop types they want and what they are used for freely. Here's an example of the freeman pop type. They give you an amount of local manpower, 0.05, can be promoted to citizen, demoted to slaves. And another cool modding aspect is that everything that costs power, manpower or money use the same price mechanic internally, so you can base everything on money if you so desire. Here's a few scripts from the price database. So basically there is always the same price machine, price mechanic, and your religious power, your manpower, your military power, your gold is just a different currency. So you have different currencies, so to say. And this is also relevant for the economy system that's going to come in the next week. And I'm looking forward to that, because I'm always a big fan of these economy mechanics in games. If you know my Let's Plays, I'm more of the builder and developer type than necessarily the war type. So what type of player are you? Are you fully into war? War, that is very effective. If you're good in the war part of such a game, you can very probably dominate a game very quickly if you're very good at that. So that's also cool. Or does it fascinate you? What does fascinate you? The religion, the culture, the economy, the build-up phase? Or is it more like the late game phase where your armies go marching and dominate everything? That said, thank you for watching and happy gaming to you. This is Immanuel signing out. Have a great time. Until next time. Until next week, maybe. Happy gaming.